Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce saying, Joyce, the time has come.
For the first time and the last time? Last time for us
The
for this
last
season.
time for us.
First
It's our
time
final
for a woman to win Best Director.
first time for a woman to win Best Director. Last time for us here on Oscars Playback, Joyce. We've completed the 2000s with the 2010 Oscars.
Yeah, and the first year of the preferential ballot, the Dark Knight rule.
The Dark Knight rule, first year of 10 nominees. And I have to say, going out on a mid note to me, it feels like.
I'm not a fan of the season in terms of just the competitiveness of the winners or like the races. I mean, just a lot of chalk stuff. And the show itself, not great, especially coming off of the peak of Hugh Jackman the year before. And then like we talked about last week, they try to keep some of the stuff that worked for that ceremony and then just half-assed it here. And then they just totally disrespected the supporting actors nominees. A huge emphasis on the lead nominees. The only parts of this ceremony I rewatch are the monologue by Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin, which is great, and Tina Fey and Robert Downey Jr.'s presentation of original screenplay, or adapted screenplay, one of them.
Incredible stuff.
Yeah.
The rest of the show is pretty mid. It feels like a weird season, like you said, because we went from certainly the Jackman show was great and like a lot of really great winners recently, and even that year, right, with like the winners are fun at least or whatever. And this year it feels like multiple Lifetime Achievement Award Oscars.
Yeah.
And that's like for no reason, like just because.
So let me I found Roger Ebert's predictions.
Sure.
He wrote this on February 19th, 2010. The ceremony was on March 7th, 2010, obviously because of the Olympics.
Sure.
And then this is, hold on, I have to scroll. This is his lead. I can't remember a year when it seemed easier to predict the Oscars.
The four acting winners are four of the most locked chalk acting winners possibly we've ever seen on this, doing this for 20. We've done 20 Oscars. I don't think we've had any year that was so obviously slam dunked for these four acting winners. The two supporting
even though they didn't all sweep everything, because BAFTA went with different lead winners. They went with Colin Firth for A Single Man and Carey Mulligan for An Education.
Correct.
But yeah, but like that did not impact anything. So and it's also because it was not out yet in England. So
yeah, we could do this. As we usually do. The winners here, and the winners are. That was like a big thing for this year. The winners are.
They brought it back. They changed it. Yeah,
they brought it back.
But I mean, I don't even know. Like the year in film in 2009 was okay.
It's a pretty mid-year, pretty mid Oscars. Hurt Locker wins Best Picture. Kathryn Bigelow obviously wins Best Director, a historic win. Jeff Bridges, Sandra Bullock, Christoph Waltz, and Monique are the acting winners.
Yeah.
Avatar was the biggest movie of the year. Number 2 movie, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, a huge, just terrible movie.
Never seen it.
Harry Potter and Half-Blood Prince, pretty good. Twilight Saga,
never seen it.
Twilight Saga, New Moon, not great, Bob. And then the movie Up, Pixar.
Love Up. Up, great film. Obviously, iconic score by Michael Giacchino, who wins. Married Life. Yeah.
Steve and Alec host. Alec's first time. Very fun. Like, we'll talk about that. They seemingly wanted Sacha Baron Cohen, Joyce.
Yeah, but the powers that be were too scared.
He was a quote wild card. Not sure Sacha Baron Cohen actually would have been a good Oscar host, frankly.
No.
I think he would have done it. I think it would have been a little more like Jon Stewart-esque, unless he's out there doing Borat the whole time, which would have been absolutely.
I think they were expecting him to do Borat, and that's why they were scared.
That would have been brutal. Absolutely brutal. Yeah, this is not the 40. The ratings went up 41.62 million, and like you said, they took the wrong lessons from the Great Hugh Jackman show, which was, we're just gonna open the show with the lead actor nominees and actress nominees, and they're just gonna stand there.
Just so awkward. Why?
I don't understand it. And then we're going to have Neil Patrick Harris come out and do a very fun, admittedly fun musical number where he goes, "Why am I not hosting?" A great question. And maybe one we should have asked not on the live show, maybe during rehearsals or something.
Yeah, he'll host in 5 years. They'll have him back, but he should. This is like the era of when he was at his peak. You know, Himyam was still on. Barney Stinson was a fan favorite. He won Emmys for Glee and hosting the Tonys, but not for Himyam because he lost to John Cryer, who was there for the John Hughes tribute. And there was a lot of push from fans to be like, hey, NPH should host Oscars. But I think it was also a thing of his schedule and then him being on CBS too. You know, I mean, obviously Alec Baldwin, like 30 Rock is on NBC. But yeah, I think when he finally hosted in 2015, it was just too late. And then it wasn't a great ceremony. We're not talking about that one, but it was just weird, yeah, to have him. I do not watch that segment, that like that real opening with like the acting nominee, the lead acting nominees, and his song and dance, because I'm like, this is just secondhand embarrassment for me.
When they list when there's the list of like all-time Oscar calamities, and it's like always like Snow White kind of Rob Lowe. I think the Neil Patrick Harris thing is actually fun, but the acting nominees coming out to stand there is got to be one of the most embarrassing things.
Yes, like I remember watching it live because we were, of course, in the office to cover this live, and we were all just like, "What the fuck?" Like,
it's like iconically bad. I don't even understand it. It's like basically like, look at these famous people. Please watch. They're very pressed about people watching. It feels like, as usual.
Oh well, yeah, because obviously they're concerned about the ratings. Right. And then of course, you know, they kept like from the previous year of having people speak about the acting nominees before the category. I mean, the previous year they did it for all 4 categories and it was previous winners. This year it was like, fuck off supporting nominees, all about the leads, and we're just bringing out like your co-stars and like not even former winners.
It definitely feels a little self-indulgent. I will say, like, Oprah gets to vet Gabourey Sidibe, and it's really nice. I thought that one's like really good, but then the rest of them feel like just so stilted and awkward because it just is like, you have Colin Farrell going the iconic line to Jeremy Renner. I was fortunate to get to know Jeremy on a film we did called SWAT.
Great film. Just
the fucking best. That was like, this is that is how we open his tribute.
Yes. I mean, why not?
so we'll get to the ceremony, but first, obviously, we'll do the year in film. Mid-year, I wrote down not a lot of movies, Joyce, I gotta say.
The first one I wrote down was Bride Wars, to kick off the year with a bang.
Same. It's so bad. Just an all-time bad movie. Chris Pratt.
And the way it ends, oh my gosh. I mean, I love the people involved.
Yeah.
Ish. Brian Greenberg. Love Brian Greenberg. I once walked past his engagement party with Jamie Chung.
Oh, fun.
Because we were like we were being led to our table and you have to walk past the room they were in. So then we were all just like, oh, that's Brian Greenberg and Jamie Chung. It's like, oh yeah, they just got engaged last month. So it was like they're engaged. Yeah.
Were you a big fan of How to Make It in America?
I did not watch the whole thing, but yes, I've seen it. And
great show. So, great show. Yeah. Entourage with jeans.
Yes.
We used to be country, and in that country, HBO used to say, we're going to do Entourage, but with jeans. And it was like, fuck yeah, it's great.
I mean, you know, like the HBO lineup in the aughts is unparalleled. Like everyone talks about Sex and the City and The Sopranos, but they're like the second tier shows.
Great.
That really make it.
Really good. Another one I wrote down, Notorious. Saw this in Forest Hills. Did you see this movie?
No, I have not. But you know, my guy Anthony Mackie talks about it all the time.
I haven't seen it probably since 2009, but I loved it because I was a big Puff Daddy fan. This is a great era of music, and just an awesome movie about Notorious B.I.G. and Puff Daddy. Anthony Mackie in it, like you said, just a great cast, a lot of fun, good movie.
And then at the end of January, we have Taken.
Yes,
the rebirth of Liam Neeson.
Taken, I wrote down Paul Blart, which I feel like
Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Yes.
Yes. A classic January film.
this was like, we're going to put these two trash, basically direct-to-DVD movies out, and they're going to make a ton of money. People were so excited to go to the movies in 2009.
Yeah. And then now, Liam Neeson is an action star.
Yes,
So
still
the only
crazy.
sad thing was that, like 6 weeks later, Natasha Richardson died.
Yeah. Very sad.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not that into you. You like that one, Joyce?
I did not like that one, but I've seen it. And yeah, no.
Here's what I wrote down that actually I think is good, even though it's probably fraught, is Watchmen. I actually like Zack Snyder's Watchmen. I think it's pretty good.
I had to see that as part of like a work trip. Like we all went out that Friday. We walked to the AMC in Times Square. There was no one in the office for the whole afternoon. It was like late morning, early afternoon. I do not remember this movie at all. I did not really enjoy it. So I
think it's good. I do think the TV version of Watchmen was like a lot better, but I don't think this is bad. I just think Watchmen's show was like really good, and also probably storytelling wise conducive to more of an expansive story, right, than just a 2-hour movie, basically. I wrote this one down. One of the biggest disappointments I think I've ever had in a movie, Duplicity.
That was just, I don't even know if it's like bad. It was just kind of like, what was that?
Tony Gilroy off Michael Clayton.
Of Michael Clayton.
Clive Owen just owning at this era with Julie Roberts again, Paul Giamatti and Tom Wilkinson in the supporting cast. Couldn't tell you one fucking thing about this movie. It was such a bummer.
But you know what? Julia got a Globe nomination out of it.
That's so bad. I was like really excited for this movie, and it did not work at all.
Around the same time, this movie that kind of is pretty much forgotten, I think, these days. Like no one brings it up when talking about any of the people's careers involved. But Sunshine Cleaning,
yes,
Amy Adams and Emily Blunt, great film. And yeah, very underrated. I would have nominated Emily.
Saw that in the theater, actually. Great. They were great siblings.
Yes.
Movie I really like, I Love You, Man.
I love You, Man. I saw that opening night. And then for like a whole year, my coworkers and I would just call each other Jobin.
Slapping the bass. Great. We rewatched it recently. Holds up incredibly well. Just a great Jason Segel.
I haven't seen that in a while.
It's so good. I highly recommend rewatching it. And a great Jon Favreau, just absolutely fucking furious the entire movie. Just a great when Jon Favreau was acting moment. Adventureland. A lot of these, another like off Greg Mottola off Superbad comes back with Adventureland. Couldn't remember really a thing about this.
No, big year for Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah.
So yeah, later Zombieland. So it was fine. Did you see Fred Durst's directorial debut, The Education of Charlie Banks?
I did not.
Okay.
Any good?
Jesse was also in that. It was kind of like schmaltzy. So, and then one of my faves, 17 again. I
had it written down
religiously.
I had it written down. I was like, Joyce liked this. I never talked to you about this. Obviously knew you liked it. I just immediately knew that. I was like, Joyce liked this.
I am who I am. So great film, great Zac Efron performance, lovely Matthew Perry performance, Thomas Lennon too. And when they were on The Odd Couple together, no one ever brought up 17 again with them, like in any of their press tours, which was weird to me. So
you should have done the interviews.
I know, I should have.
I wrote down two of these that were like felt like failed Oscar movies that just got dumped into the spring. State of Play.
I love that movie.
And The Soloist.
Oh my God, The Soloist. I remember because it was like, it seemed like people were talking about that for a while and it kept getting delayed.
Yes.
And then once it got the spring date, I was like, oh, well, like that's trash.
Now we know why it was delayed.
State of Play I really, really liked, but because journalism procedural, gotta stand.
Journalism procedural, yeah.
But yeah, that clearly was not gonna go anywhere either. So
this is a year where a lot of these movies that are bad are also affected by the writer's strike. So X-Men Origins Wolverine, classic case of the genre, I feel like. a humongous piece of shit.
That I mean, Logan is the best one of the Wolverine trilogy, obviously.
Certainly. Wolverine, X-Men Origins Wolverine, if I remember correctly, we have Ryan Reynolds, his first appearance is Deadpool, and then they cover his mouth up, because when you have Ryan Reynolds and you have the character Deadpool and you have no writers, I guess you just put a fucking X on his face and call it a day.
I mean, that's how they're shooting Deadpool 3 right now, so.
Well, not now. It's canceled. Everything's canceled.
They were.
Here's a great movie. Absolutely loved. Probably would put it in Best Picture if I was doing this. Star Trek.
That was, I mean, I liked it, but I'm not a big Star Trek person.
I'm not either, and that's why I like this movie, because J.J. Abrams was like, I like Star Wars, and I'm just going to make Star Trek into Star Wars. And then later he made Star Wars, and it was also good. But this one rules. I just think it's so
I'm
great.
not into either of the stars. But yeah, it was a good movie.
I love this is a great Giacchino score too. I've listened to it a million times. He could have easily won for this instead of Up, but I'll take the Up win because he's got the memorable opening.
Married Life.
Married Life is great, but Star Trek rules. What a great movie. Chris Hemsworth rules. Incredible Pine, great supporting cast.
They're you know what? They're never gonna make another one. They're just gonna keep talking about it.
You know what? They were huge diminishing returns on this franchise. I thought the one with Benedict Cumberbatch, Into Darkness, was rough, and then I know people.
I haven't seen the others. I've only seen the first one.
Beyond, I think people did like a little, but I didn't think it was quite good. And this one felt like perfect. The whole cast is great. R.I.P. Anton Yelchin, great performance. Here's one I wrote down that I liked at the time. I recently rewatched it last year, and it held up really well. It's Brothers Bloom, a forgotten Rian Johnson movie.
Rachel Weisz, Adrian Brody, Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, great film.
Really good. Rachel Weisz is so much fun, I think. And Ruffalo is like awesome. Like, he doesn't really get to do that kind of thing anymore, like act. But he's really good in it. And I love Brody, obviously. You gotta love Adrian Brody.
Yeah, like no one talks about this as part of Ryan's resume, really.
Was completely memory hold. I can't figure out why. It's not bad. It's also maybe hard to find. I think I had to rent it. It's not streaming anywhere. But
I mean,
it definitely
I haven't
was
seen
just
it
like
in ages.
He like put that away. He was like, we're putting this in the basement and not talking about it anymore. In a year,
it was also because like in 2 years that like he had Looper, so that kind of like leveled him up, and then obviously Star Wars. So
right. I haven't seen Looper in a while. I saw a little of it last year. I think Brothers Bloom is probably better, but I know people like Looper.
I like Looper.
It's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I think he's a good filmmaker. I like his movies. Terminator Salvation, you big fan of that one? Huge flop. No, terrible.
Never seen it.
We talked about the movie Up, or we will. Love that opening.
Did you cry?
Oh yeah. I mean, this one we haven't watched a lot of. I've only seen it a few times. It's
yeah, I've only seen it a few times. I haven't seen it in a while, but I do sometimes stumble across, you know, the opening sequence, Married Life, and I watch that on YouTube, you know.
And the music is great.
Yeah. And so this came out I think like a week apart from The Hangover. And then I remember like the following week, my editor-in-chief in a meeting was like, isn't it crazy that 2 of the biggest movies of the summer have a character named Doug?
That's the kind of scintillating coverage you get sometimes.
Yeah, spelled differently, but you know, Doug and Doug.
I wrote down Away We Go when I did my Sam Mendes rewatch. I watched this one. Just such a
I have no memory of it.
It's like
I saw it, but I don't remember anything.
Sam Mendes doing like Garden State mixed with like Noah Baumbach, Krasinski doing with a beard. There are parts of it that are good. It's very episodic. It feels like very much of this era of indies. Not a great film, not terrible. The Hangover absolutely rules. Loved it so much.
The first one is the best one.
Like one of the funniest, again, like we've talked, like Wedding Crashers, I think was like on there. This is on the level of like funniest theatrical experiences ever. When they go to the end of the movie and you see the camera, like they go back and look at the stuff that happened that night. That is like the audience like exploding. Like I've never heard a crowd of a movie theater laugh as hard as that.
This is another franchise with like diminishing returns with the future installments. Yeah, like I don't rewatch others.
I'd seen them once and never again. They were horrible movies,
same.
I thought. And like definitely should not have done, though. I mean, let's just say it moved them, Krusty the Clown style. Let's just say it moved them to a bigger house. Thank God they did this, because I feel like Bradley Cooper probably is still living off the money he made from these future hangovers and getting to do his other movies that I think are quite good.
I mean, he could have just lived off of the first one. So.
Holy shit, the movie is so good, and he is so fun. It's like an all-time
he's
Bradley.
Like, he needs to do more comedy. Like, we know he's great at comedy. And then like when he's also like an asshole in like in Wedding Crashers too.
So this is great because he was the villain in Wedding Crashers, and he's like a total like 80s villain, right? Like, you know, like Billy Zabka style basically in Wedding Crashers. This is fun because you're like kind of rooting for him, but he's such a fucking asshole and he's so mad. The entire movie is so mad. It's like he's doing Vince Vaughn, but like more mad. I feel like it's just incredible. I know Galifianakis gets like all the shine for this movie because he's also obviously like very, very funny. But I just love Bradley Cooper in The Hangover so much.
He's great. I would have nominated him. It would have made the lineup a lot more exciting. And this is the kind of stuff. It's similar to like Leo, you know, like they keep doing these dramas stuff. But I'm like, do more comedy, guys.
So when I was the other day, I saw like, I forget what it was. It might have either been something about, I don't even know what it was. It was a meme. It was him on the phone. And like, we fucked up. And it's just like, he's so funny. He's just so funny, Bradley Cooper. He's just so good in this.
Yeah, he needs to do something else like this in the same vein. Just like a comedy.
He kind of was getting there with like, I mean, Licorice Pizza, that 5 minutes is like, he's doing like this a little, but he needs like,
yeah, but that's not his movie.
He needs a whole movie like that. Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, horrible remake.
Yeah, that was bad. Tony, why?
I rewatched it and I rewatched the original recently. The original's still so good. This one is like rough and like very much of the era because James Gandolfini is basically playing Michael Bloomberg in it, and it's like pretty funny. It's also like, wow, James Gandolfini just doing like junk fucking summer action movies, sure. Travolta
but you know what? You know what James Gandolfini was great in? In the Loop. One of my faves of the year. Great film. Should have gotten a ton more nominations than it did.
Absolutely. The Proposal.
I love The Proposal. You know, really big year for Sandy, obviously.
And Ryan, coming out for Ryan.
Yeah, and also, you know, another comeback, not a comeback, but Betty White adopting a new generation of fans.
Yeah, this had it all. This is a
good movie. She's gonna host SNL, and then, you know, Hot in Cleveland. It's like a new era for Betty.
I wrote these two down together. Year One and Land of the Lost. Just fucking bad.
I never saw that.
Awful movies. We're in the Apatow, let's go back to dinosaurs era, I guess.
I also never saw Funny People except for Eminem's cameo, obviously.
Oh, Funny People's great. I'm a big fan of that movie.
I just saw the runtime and I'm like, I can't do this right now.
This summer, The Hurt Locker came out in the summer.
I love The Hurt Locker. I rewatched that a lot.
I think it's fine. Never really liked it.
It's a good movie. I don't know. I wouldn't give it Best Picture, but it's a good movie. And, you know, I love Renner and Mackie, so.
I kind of would I would rewatch it again. I really like Zero Dark 30. I love Kathryn Bigelow, so I feel like I
love Zero Dark 30. Zero Dark 30 is better than A Hurt Locker.
Yes. As usual with these, my take is always the movies they win for, and then they go, the next movie is usually better. I'll go to bat with that with like multiple times, like with the exception of like Chloe Zhao and Eternals. Most of the time it actually works in recent history. They win for a movie that's good, and then their second movie is obviously a lot better. Public Enemies was the movie I saw on my first date with my wife.
Wow, why did you pick that one?
It was playing, and I was like, oh, I love Michael Mann and Johnny Depp and Christian Bale. And it's fucking bad movie.
And Billy Crudup.
God, it's so bad.
I never saw that one. So, and yet she married you.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Wow.
Really bad. We saw it at, I guess, Union Square, I guess it was.
Did you take her to see A Perfect Getaway?
No.
Just a great B film.
Yes.
And funnily enough, this came up last week, as we're recording this the first week of August, but last week, Timothy Olyphant was on Seth Meyers' new podcast, Family Trips. Tim is obviously legendary talk show guest. He's great on Seth and also Conan, and this pod had everything. And then at the end, Seth made him describe a perfect getaway as if he took the trip himself.
Okay.
That's the whole concept of the podcast, is like you talk about your family trips, So
Love
he starts describing this movie, and then he finishes, because it's about couples who go to Hawaii and then there's murder.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, he said that he doesn't read reviews, but the only critic he reads is Manohla Dargis, and if she reviews one of his movies, he has to read it. So she first reviewed one of his older films, Hitman, and said he was basically miscast in it. And he was like, okay, well, we're on the same page. She didn't say I was bad. She just said I was miscast, which I felt the same way too. And then he said in her review of A Perfect Getaway, he was shocked that she was assigned to review it, because he was like, she would never review this, but she did. And then he said she called him, or like she said something like she wants to see more of him. So then Seth was like, okay, you keep talking, I'll just find the review, I'll Google it. So he pulls up the review, and literally the last line was like, oh, Oliphant, or the regrettably underemployed Oliphant. So he's like, that's like the best compliment. And then Seth was like, I hate you for making me Google this, because that control found your name. And the first reference of you in this review says, Oliphant, a hard body with a sly smile. I mean, that should just be the name of his bio now. So
that's really good.
Yeah, but that's A Perfect Getaway.
We mentioned Sacha Baron Cohen had Bruno this summer. Not a fan.
No, I can't even remember the last time I saw it.
How about 500 Days of Summer?
I like 500 Days of Summer. Great music.
Great music, great Zooey Deschanel, good Joseph Gordon-Levitt. People kind of probably don't. I think the filmmakers are on the right page with the character, and then people like kind of
people don't understand what they were doing. And I just remember when the movie came out, because it was at Sundance first, and it was like a hit there, and then it came out that summer, and then people were disappointed that they didn't end up together. And it's like, from the beginning that they broke up, and I guess like people wanted them to get back together at the end. It's like, no, that's not what this is. And why do you need happy endings all the time?
And then Mark Webb went to direct Spider-Man.
Yes, amazing Spider-Man.
Not an amazing movie.
No.
We mentioned Funny People, which I liked. Weird movie though, very strange. Good Sandler. Starts as one thing, goes into another thing. Judge is being like this, it seemed like at that point.
I'll never see it.
You ever see the movie Paper Heart?
I did. I don't really remember it.
This is the first time I ever saw Jake Johnson in something. He plays the director of the movie, and it's a great performance. And I remember at the time being like, because it's like, this is the Michael Cera and Charlene Yee movie where they're kind of like playing themselves, and it's like a documentary, but it's not. And he plays the director, and he's so good. And it's like a great performance. And it's like, man, I was like, who is that guy? He is great. And he is great, because Jake Johnson is the best, and he remains the best. But that's my big memory of Paper Heart.
He needs an Emmy for Minx, and he won't get it.
I've been a little disappointed with the second season, but he should win an Emmy anyway. Maybe he will, because there aren't a lot of shows, Joyce. What about that?
On the show. The structure of season 2 is kind of weird.
Yeah, but the thing is, like we said on our Emmy stuff, not a lot of shows maybe for the next year.
No, but it's also on Stars. That's the problem. Like if it had stayed on Max.
Yeah. Julie and Julia. Hello. Sure.
It's fine.
District 9, another shore. Saw it once.
That was a cool nomination. Like Very the cool. fact that it did so well.
Yeah.
So
this is why they got to 10.
And that's why they felt so good about themselves.
They got it in there. Mm-hmm. I remember thinking the movie's totally fine.
Yeah, I have not rewatched it.
No. Here's a movie I love, Inglourious Bastards. Saw it at the Ziegfeld.
Great film. Quentin and Mark Bowl, who won screenplay for Hurt Locker, they should swap Oscars because Quentin will win for Django, while Mark was nominated for Zero Dark 30, and they should switch.
I would agree with that. I like Django, but Inglourious Basterds is
Inglourious Basterds is better than Django.
Yes, it is. I think Django's really good. Inglourious Basterds is great. Just a great Quentin movie. And this is like kind of a movie that he had seemingly been working on for 100 years. Because remember, it was like Adam Sandler was going to be in it and Stallone, I think. Like he had like all these people that like way back when at least had talked about it or whatever. The way it ended up is perfect. I love the whole cast. It's a great ensemble.
Great. I mean, it's awesome that it won SAG ensemble.
And it really should have. I think it's a great ensemble. It just is. Every actor is so perfectly cast. First time I'd seen Michael Fassbender in anything. He's awesome in it, right? Like so good. Christoph Waltz, obviously, incredible. Brad is great. Melanie Laurent, great. Everyone is great. Just a great movie. I have no notes on this movie. I think it's really good. I wrote down The Informant.
I like the score.
This is like try hard funny to me. Sometimes Soderbergh does this where it's like I'm being funny. Doesn't always land for me. I think people do like this movie, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah. It was okay. I just like the exclamation point at the end.
Really fun.
The title. Did you see Bright Star?
Jane Campion. I did not.
Great performance by Abby Cornish.
Yes. So. People like that movie.
Mm-hmm.
How about Jennifer's Body?
I haven't seen that in a while, but obviously it's having it's had a new life in recent years.
People really like it now.
Too.
Yeah, people really like it now. I think it was a good movie though.
Yeah.
A Serious Man.
I like A Serious Man. And this doesn't really come up as a Coen's brother film, like when you talk about them.
No.
You know?
Great movie. Incredible Michael Stuhlbarg performance.
Yeah,
and the ending is maybe their best ending.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I'd argue
the ending is real good. Mm-hmm. Here's a movie I absolutely loved. Whip It.
I can't say I've watched that again.
So seen a lot. Drew Barrymore directorial debut, and then decided, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get Robert Yeoman to shoot the movie and Dylan Titchener to edit it. So we just grabbed like Wes Anderson cinematographer.
I remember the press tour for it because it was like Elliot Page.
Yeah.
And like Marcia Gay Harden's in it, right?
Yes. It's about roller derby. Yes, it's so good. It's like really
I know what it is.
And it's just really good. I just thought this was such a good movie. Great Elliot Page off Juno. A lot of good supporting actors in it. It's just a lot of fun. Should have been a bigger deal. Kind of just got completely forgotten about. And Drew did a really nice job with the movie. And she hired like really good below the line people to help her make the movie. I wish she would have made another movie.
Well, now she's a talk show host, so.
And great at that too, apparently. I don't really watch it. Can't say
that.
Zombieland you mentioned. Solid movie.
Yeah, this is a part of a good year for Woody Harrelson too, because he'll be nominated for The Messenger. Also a great film. Ben Foster, Samantha Morton, and that.
Zombieland was a good movie. Emma Stone's great. Jesse's great. Woody, Bill Murray, great cameo. And then they made a second one that's awful. And kind of hurt.
I never saw that one.
And it really hurt my thoughts on the first one. That's how bad it was.
Did you see An Education? I really like that. That was a great like star-making performance from Carey Mulligan. Great
really
Alfred Mulligan performance.
Really good. How about Where the Wild Things Are?
I love the music. Should have been nominated.
Great music, great trailer, not a great movie.
Yeah, the movie is fine. Don't really watch it again.
It's very slow.
Yes, yeah. Here's a grammatically incorrect film that I cannot abide by. Law Abiding Citizen, missing the hyphen.
Not great.
No.
Right to jail.
Yes.
I wrote down this one, which I never saw before, but I saw the video going viral recently, and I was like, oh, I watched it. House of the Devil, which is a Ty West movie where Greta Gerwig gets shot in the face. It's a horror movie. This is when she was in her Joe Swanberg era of making horror movies and like low budget mumblecores.
But yeah, when she was still acting, basically.
Great actor.
Never seen it.
She's a great actor.
She is. Imagine her career path had her Himyam spinoff been ordered to series.
Would be very different.
An alternate timeline.
And we're very glad that that didn't happen, I think. I wrote down The Box, which is a Richard Kelly movie.
Never saw it.
Not even with your boy James Marsden? I thought maybe you would have.
No. I mean, I remember it coming out, but I just never saw it because that was also like Cameron Diaz, right?
Yes, and Frank Langella.
Yes.
Got a couple of Oscar winners here: Precious and The Blind Side.
Precious, obviously, a Sundance hit, and it was good movie. I haven't watched it again, in a really long time.
No. Saw it once.
And yeah, and The Blind Side was just a surprise smash.
Saw it once, enjoyed it, never thought of it again.
I mean, it's like on TV a lot, so I've seen like snippets of it, like especially when you're like at a bar or something,
Sure.
And it's like on TBS.
Yeah, it feels like a TBS sports movie that you would see.
Yeah, it is. It's a totally average movie.
Yeah, it's fine.
But it was just a huge box office hit. Capped a great year for Sandra Bullock. And then she just won an Oscar for it.
And she says, did I win this or did I wear you down?
Oh, she knew what happened.
She knew. She wore them down. But good for her. I mean, she should have an Oscar. Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I really liked at the time. Rewatch it when we were doing a Wes Anderson rewatch. A little slow.
I haven't seen it since, really, but I enjoyed it when I saw it.
Great Clooney voice performance. Good Meryl. How about Up in the Air? A movie I haven't thought about since I saw it.
I've seen it a few times. I liked it, but it's not like a favorite of mine. And I don't think, based on the nominations it got, and then its shocking loss in Adapted Screenplay, which also had some other external factors part of that too.
I guess we'll do that when we get to it, right?
Yeah, when we get to Adapted Screenplay. But yeah, it didn't seem like the voters really took to it that much.
No.
And I think it's probably a little bit too close to home for a lot of them, because it's still like barely coming out of the recession at this point. So not really uplifting.
No. I'm not, like I said, I've not seen it again. I truly remember very little of it. I remember the Sam Elliott scene on the plane, right? That's at the end, I think. Him, George, and Sam.
You know what made me think of it again? A couple months ago when Tom made Greg fire everyone at ATN.
Sure.
I'm like, it's up in the air.
Here's what I wrote down. A lot, the end of the year movies, just a big bunch of disappointing stuff that I don't care about, including Invictus, Lovely Bones, 9.
That was DDL's post There Will Be Blood thing. And no.
Maybe the only bad movie he's made ever.
Yeah, and then it was like something he was like barely on the press tour for it, and he was like so exhausted by it or something. I don't know. But yeah, not a great one. And then Lovely Bones. Remember when Ryan Gosling put on like 60 pounds to be in it? He was gonna play the dad, and then Peter Jackson fired him because they had never discussed him putting on the weight, and then he was replaced by Mark Wahlberg.
Stanley Tucci hated this movie, or maybe didn't hate the movie, he hated playing the character.
Yeah, and then he got nominated for it. They should have nominated him for Julie and Julia.
And then in the crowd, you could even tell. I mean, he's like playing obviously like a child murderer, so just like the worst human being in history, right? And then like, or on like the level of like just really bottom barrel people, and you could just tell in the crowd, he's just like, no. Even when they show his clip of like him like coercing Saoirse Ronan into like her death den.
Yeah, and it was this is why sometimes I hate like book adaptations or like film adaptations of books, because I like the book, but I was just like, I don't know if this needs to be a movie. And then the movie wasn't great. Same thing this year with Confessions of a Shopaholic. Like, no one remembers this movie anymore. I also felt like they made that movie way too late, because that book came out in like 2000, And I remember reading it when I was a teenager. I'm like, oh, I would love to see this movie. And then it just never happened within 3 years. And then the movie wasn't good. So you don't need to adapt everything into a movie.
No. Then obviously Avatar, Crazy Heart, A Single Man. It's complicated. These are all
I love It's
movies.
Complicated.
Good movie. I wrote down Princess and the Frog because I like it. My daughter likes it, and they nominated the wrong songs for it, and that was my big take. And we can talk about that. We get to
this. The end of the year also had Sherlock Holmes.
Yes.
RDJ, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, which was the film that Heath Ledger was filming when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see Brothers with Tobey Maguire and Jake
Remember
Gyllenhaal?
the poster, never saw it.
Yeah, Toby got a Globe nomination for it. It's a totally mid movie, but I was happy for his nom. And then there was this had Oscar buzz for Emily Blunt, The Young Victoria.
Yes. I have her written down because I think she got nominated somewhere.
Yeah. But this was just nothing except for costumes. So, and then there was 2012.
Yes.
Yeah. And then what else is there? Oh, The White Ribbon, which I liked and arguably should have won cinematography.
Right.
So I don't know what else is there this year.
Not much.
Oh, there's The Girlfriend Experience, which then became a TV show on Starz.
Yes, Sasha Grey. Glenn Kenny, the film critic, had a big role in it.
Mm-hmm.
Soderbergh just churning it out. He just makes so many movies.
He's like a younger Clint.
Mm-hmm.
Paranormal Activity, the first one this year.
Such a big deal that Steve and Alec do a bit with it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the year was okay.
Totally fine. I just did not love these movies. I was my favorite movies of the year are Star Trek, Inglourious Bastards, and The Hangover. It's just all mainstream stuff.
Yeah, I loved that year I was watching 17 again religiously. In the Loop, I watch a lot. It's on Tubi, so anyone can watch it right now.
That's good to know. I may go back and we'll check it out after we do this.
And yeah, Hangover. Yeah, I don't revisit a lot of films from this year.
No. So Hurt Locker wins 6 Oscars, Joyce. 9 nominations, 6 wins.
Well, Avatar and Hurt Locker got 9 nominations.
Avatar wins 3.
Yeah. And I mean, there was 3 films, I think, with 2 wins: Crazy Heart, Precious, and Up, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but the show itself was pretty boring. I think the only exciting part of the show was the opening monologue.
So the opening monologue, I just wrote down some of the jokes. You could tell Alec is nervous, I think, a little as doing it.
Well, he's never done it before.
And Steve again gets stomped on with his punchlines. He sets up these great jokes and he always gets stomped on. It's so funny with the applause. He must be so mad. He bring up Meryl Streep. They're obviously It's Complicated co-star. A record for nominations, or as I like to think of it, most losses.
I mean, not wrong.
Totally true. Hilarious.
Yeah. My favorite line from Alec was when he was like, oh, there's Matt Damon, Morgan Freeman from one of your favorite movies, Invictus. It combines 2 of your favorite things: rugby and tensions between blacks and whites.
Wrote that down. Hilarious. How about this one? There's that damn Helen Mirren.
It's Dame.
Steve, that's a Dame Helen Mirren.
Well, the other thing they say about Meryl is also, when people meet Meryl Streep, they say 2 things.
Yes.
And That Woman Act, and what's up with all the Hitler memorabilia.
So good. Christoph Waltz played a Nazi obsessed with finding the Jews. Well, Christoph? And then they cut to the Coen brothers.
It's the mother load.
Unbelievable joke. It's unbelievably funny. I was truly laughing out loud at their monologue. It's so good. We had Steve. I feel like Steve was hit and miss on his recently. But
well,
this
his
is
second
really
one was
good.
very, you know,
Bad.
sexist.
Yeah, I thought his second one was not good at all, but this one, he's just like amazing. It's so funny. It's like really, really funny. And him and Alec are so good together.
Yeah, I wanted them to host again, which they obviously never did.
I'm kind of surprised they never did.
I feel like they would probably do it if they were actually asked, but I feel like the powers that be might not want them back.
Maybe. Well, not now.
Yeah.
But I mean, even in the past, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So
you mentioned you mentioned the Tina Robert Downey Jr. Thing. Truly a hilarious.
I can't even tell you how many times I've linked to that clip because I would reference the like what RDJ says about like filming phone call scenes with that actress you hate. Like I've linked to it in so many things.
They're doing original screenplay. Tina says, "We writers dream of a future where actors are mostly computer generated and their performances can be adjusted on a laptop alone." This is a great moment. This was really funny watching it now, thinking of like the world we live in with like this dual strikes and how like this is probably very true compared to like the solidarity that we're seeing.
It's a collaboration.
It's a collaboration between handsome, gifted people and sickly little mole people, Robert Downey Jr. says.
Yeah. Also,
and,
he's wearing great sneakers.
And then Tina says, "You should say whatever we type," which is just facts. Very funny.
So yeah, it's a back-to-back great presenting years for Tina Fey.
To the point where I was like, they should have maybe just had her do original screenplay for years. Just have her do the screenplay winners every year. So we'll get into the awards. Best Picture, Joyce. There were 10 nominees. We talked about this.
Yes. Well, as we know from the previous year,
they fucked up.
The Dark Knight
didn't dominate The Dark Knight.
They fucked up. The Dark Knight was not nominated. So that ceremony was on February 22nd, 2009. On June 24th, 2009, AMPAS announces, surprise, we're expanding to 10 Best Picture nominees. Has not been done in 66 years. And here's a quote from Sid Ganis, the then president. So he did a Q&A after they announced it. So the story, it says, like, in a question and answer session that followed the announcement, Mr. Ganis said, quote, "I would not be telling you the truth if I said the words Dark Knight did not come up." So just super reactionary to everything. And they think this would fix things and be more inclusive of blockbusters and populist movies.
Yes.
So then the lineup we get.
So the nominees, Hurt Locker wins. The other nominees are Avatar, The Blind Side, District 9. So 3 huge box office hits. An Education, Inglourious Bastards, Precious, A Serious Man, Up, and Up in the Air. So a good mix.
Yeah. So after nominations, here's a story. Oops, that's the wrong one. So the headline, also in the New York Times, do the 10 top the 5? Oscar promoters say yes. So the lead is like last year they announced all this stuff and then cue months of grumbling and grousing from armchair critics who said the expansion devalued the word, from directors who were miffed that there wasn't a parallel doubling of the categories, and from Academy members who couldn't think of 10 good movies, period. Now that the nominations have been announced, the consensus seems to be, hey, that was a pretty good idea. Quote, "It did exactly what it was supposed to do," said Ronnie Chasson, a longtime awards consultant in Los Angeles. This is kind of sad because she will tragically die in a robbery gone wrong that fall. So yeah, so they like talk about like the variety of nominees here. You have box office behemoths like Avatar, inspirational fare like The Blind Side, and genre films like the sci-fi parable District 9. In addition to typical Oscar bait, artful war tales, The Hurt Locker, the sophisticated coming of middle age, Up in the Air, and British period dramas, and Education. And then obviously we have the first animated Best Picture nominee, since Beauty and the Beast. And then they call Inglourious Bastards indie popcorn flick.
Is it indie? It made like $100 million.
I don't know. And then they called Precious elevated urban grit.
Wow. That would not fly.
So, and then it says, at a time when television audiences are more segmented than ever, this group had something nearly everybody could root for, a major concern for ceremonies producers who are aiming to boost ratings by giving the show a populist wash. After spending months of, quote, planning for disaster, the nomination of 10 art house films, Bill Mechanic, a producer of the show, said they were pleasantly surprised by the mix. Quote, what intruded on us is all positive, he said. So I agree. I think this is a pretty good like platonic ideal for what they envision the expansion to 10 to do.
So this is, like we just said, this is not a great year for movies. So this list is automatically hamstrung by that. But when you have Avatar in there and The Blind Side and District 9, Star Trek, I think, was a PGA nominee, right?
Yeah.
And Hangover and Invictus was also, or was Invictus at BAFTA?
Invictus was at PGA. PGA was Hurt Locker, Avatar, District 9, and Education, Inglourious Bastards, Invictus, Precious, Star Trek, Up and Up in the Air.
Right. And then The Hangover I wrote down as like one I would have put in. But Star Trek could have easily gotten in this list, but I think was not going to ever get in.
Yeah. So, but like this lineup, you know, you could feel them breathing a sigh of relief. It's like they got a good mix, you know.
You got an animated movie.
Yeah. So they feel like this all worked. And then, you know, the following year, it skewed a little bit more indie.
So the following year, we're not going to do the following year. Not for this.
No, but we can mention the nominees.
This is a much better year. A great year for movies. And here are the nominees. And it's a fucking bunch of bangers. The King's Speech wins. No. But then Black Swan, The Fighter, Inception, The Kids Are All Right, 127 Hours, The Social Network, Toy Story 3, True Grit, and Winter's Bone. Now, there's more indie there, but a lot of those movies made money.
Yeah, and they're great films. Like I think overall it's a better lineup than this one.
Certainly.
The one I'm talking about. But it's not as, you know, bankable blockbustery as this one.
There's no Blind Side.
There's no Blind Side. But you know, there's more independent films in this one. Yeah. So then they got a little scared, or very scared, and then they overhauled the process again, and they made it into the sliding scale because they thought that way it would curb the pockets of support that indies had, and they won't get in. But that just also backfired because we just got even more great indie films getting in, and we weren't getting in, you know, like The Force Awakens or Wonder Woman.
Certainly,
you know, that's what they wanted.
Certainly the it's kind of like, it's like an Oppenheimer, when Oppenheimer is so naive to think that he could build a nuclear bomb and that the government would say
no consequences.
And the government would say, yes, now we're not going to use it and we're just going to share it with the rest of the world. These guys in the Academy, not to compare World War II and the nuclear bomb to the Best Picture race, but clearly they were like, oh, if we do a sliding scale, everyone loves these blockbusters, so they'll be number one, and not thinking the passion of the smaller movies would actually, sliding scale would benefit the smaller movies and hurt the bigger movies. Like The Blind Side would not have gotten in on a sliding scale, probably.
No, probably not. But it's like, it's I mean, you know, it's like so much math involved. I haven't done math since high school, so. But yeah, like there's just, The Blind Side would not gotten into a 5. We know that for sure. So, but yeah, they like the sliding scale, you know, it left out all these blockbusters. So then now they have since reverted back to the hard 10.
And now we're out of blockbusters, seemingly. So this year we'll probably get Barbie in, and it probably would have gotten in anyway with 5, or even a sliding. So Hurt Locker wins. I would have picked Inglourious Bastards on this lineup, and then probably A Serious Man, but also not super unhappy with the Hurt Locker win.
Yeah, I'm fine with the Hurt Locker winning. I think it's a good movie, and it's also obviously a timely movie, but it speaks to like the bigger theme of just, you know, kind of like addiction and what war does to people. Like the ending is sad.
Yeah. It's like support the troops, but know that this is all fucked.
Yes. Yeah.
What are the 5 if this was a 5?
If this was our 5, it would be Hurt Locker, Avatar, Inglourious Basterds, Precious, and Up in the Air.
So I disagree. I have those 4 and I have An Education instead of Up in the Air.
No, Up in the Air would still get in.
I think An Education would get in. They clearly didn't love Up in the Air, like you had mentioned.
But it's still the bigger movie.
It's the bigger movie, but Education got in at PGA, right?
I mean, so did Up in the Air.
And DGA. Or did
What?
not get a DGA.
No,
it didn't get a DGA. I'm sorry.
I was like, what are you talking about? DGA was Kathryn, James.
Yes, the same 5.
Jason Reitman, and Quentin Tarantino.
It got in a BAFTA.
Well,
I think it would have gotten in. I do. I think there's more passion for Education than there was for Up in the Air. I don't think Up in the Air would have made it in. But I think the other 4 are like locked.
No, I think it would just been like that 5, and I think Up in the Air was ultimately 5th if it were that 5. It was obviously weakening because it didn't get the editing nomination, and it also missed SAG Ensemble, and then obviously it will lose Adapted Screenplay. So I think if it was the 5, it would have finished 5th because I think Precious was building momentum and it was also the tearjerker. So
you think An Education with the SAG Ensemble, a PGA nod, and its BAFTA windfall would not get in, but Up in the Air with all its demerits would?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
It's still the bigger movie.
I guess, but I just think it's like they just didn't like it.
I mean, like 9 also got an ensemble nomination.
It's true, but 9 was bad.
Like Penelope Cruz also got into, she got her Afterglow nomination.
I mean, I have 9 on like the list of second 10.
The thing is with SAG Ensemble, like they skew very populist, and there's just always nominees there that don't do well at the Oscars. Like just a couple years ago, we had Ma Rainey and One Eye in Miami. They're SAG Ensemble nominees. They didn't make Best Picture on a sliding scale.
Yeah, but they didn't have the support from like BAFTA, like An Education did.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I don't think Education like is populist to me. Like Up in the Air feels populist, and Education feels like indie.
Yeah, but like it's still like it has its support, right? And then like obviously it has the BAFTA, like the British block, but overall, like Up in the Air is still the bigger movie.
I mean, I guess
I'm not saying it's winning. I'm saying it's 5th and a 5.
So Up in the Air got in Best Film at BAFTA, but not Best Director. That was also part of my calculus. Carrie won at BAFTA. We've seen BAFTA have such an impact. I don't know. I think Education would be 5th. But either one, if Up in the Air was 6, I'm not disagreeing with you. But like, I don't think it would have gotten in. But whatever, the other 4 are fine. And Avatar and Hurt Locker would have won anyway if it was 5.
With a single vote. Yeah, I guess if you like would treat everything else the same, like the momentum it had, but it's a different system. Here's the thing though.
I don't know.
What do you think was the runner-up? Because you can make an argument for Avatar, Inglourious Basterds, and Precious as runner-ups.
I guess Avatar, but I really think maybe Precious could have had enough to be runner-up.
I think like you look at Avatar and it wins like, a bunch of tech categories and it's a blockbuster. But I mean, on a preferential ballot, I think there are too many people who would rank it last.
See, yeah.
And I don't think on a 5, it would have a lot of people just picking it straight out as their one pick. Either I think there's still kind of like some purists that think it like relies too heavily on the tech, even though it's groundbreaking. And then Inglourious Basterds, I feel like it's probably been like a consistent 3rd, except for at SAG.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a good film, but no one's like truly in love with it. But then like Precious was something people really liked.
Precious, I think in a preferential ballot would have had a lot of 10s also, but
yeah,
I think just a straight up vote, I think it would have had a lot of passion behind it. I still think Hurt Locker would have won though with that, even that 5. It just feels like
because I think like
consensus.
if you think everything else is the same that season,
Yeah,
and like just like the film did like what was its box office at the end?
not a lot.
Not a lot. Well, like the drama with this was also one of the Hurt Locker producers, Nicholas Chartier, he emailed Academy members and was like, vote for us. Don't vote for a $500 million film without naming Avatar, but it's absolutely about Avatar. So he got banned from the ceremony. No, we've never heard about that stuff happening ever. Obviously.
Weird. It's so strange. Hurt Locker premiered at Venice in 2008.
Yes.
Was it TIFF, I think, that same year?
Mm-hmm. It could have been a 2008 release, but it was not.
Was finally released in 2009 by Summit Entertainment. Mm-hmm. So it really kind of held the line for a long time. Best Director, finally, Kathryn Bigelow wins. Barbra Streisand was psyched.
It's another one of those things. Like she was obviously winning, but it was like they're trying to get cutesy with it, and got Babs.
Other nominees are Cameron, Tarantino, Lee Daniels, and Jason Reitman.
Yeah.
Feels right. Reitman is, I think, the weakest of these 5. This was the DGA 5 too.
Yeah. There's a lot of like guild overlap with these categories here.
Yes.
So the Globes went with Avatar and James Cameron.
Right.
And that was basically the only thing, like big thing. It won all season.
Yes.
And then Hurt Locker and Kathryn won everything else. Like she won DGA, she won BAFTA, and also Critics' Choice too. And yeah, it was just, they finally realized that women make films and they could give Oscars to women who make films.
Just one then, and then for a long time.
For now, and then we have to wait, almost a decade for a second one. So.
Who'd you have in 6th here?
Here, I don't know if like any one of these are like 6, but I just wrote down like Neil Blomkamp for District 9, Lana Scherfig for Education. My personal pick is Armando Iannucci for In the Loop.
Nice. I wrote down those. I wrote down Todd Phillips for Hangover. So never gonna happen.
Like Clint was also a popular prediction for this, because again, like every time Clint has a late film, gotta think it's something. I mean, he got acting nominations for this, but
this feels like a very set 5 though, obviously.
Yeah, just boring. And then
kind of wild that these are great. I would say like this is a great group of filmmakers though. I do like this list. It's not as good as like the Guillermo del Toro, Jordan Peele, Greta Gerwig, Christopher Nolan PTA year, but like this is good. These are 5 good filmmakers.
And so the thing like a month later was that got a lot of pickup was like Sigourney Weaver was promoting Avatar in Brazil. And she allegedly told a Brazilian website called Fola Online, and I can't find the original source of this interview.
I can't wait to hear this. Yes.
Oh, you don't know this?
No.
This got a lot of pickup then.
I probably heard it at the time.
Yeah. So she allegedly told this website, she was asked about like, Jim losing the Oscar for Best Director, and she said, allegedly, quote, "Jim didn't have breasts, and I think that was the reason. He should have taken home that Oscar." And that obviously Kathryn Bigelow and James Cameron used to be married, which was also one of the storylines that season. And then her other quote allegedly is, "In the past, Avatar would have won because they love to hand out awards to big productions like Ben-Hur. today it's fashionable to give the Oscar to a small movie that nobody saw. That's not wrong. That part.
That's not wrong. I don't believe for a second she said the first one though. I don't know.
It's like that got a lot of pickup then, and then like nothing. I mean, it'll be different now with that she had allegedly said that now.
She would immediately deny it.
Yeah, like I don't think she ever had to issue a clarification or anything.
Wow. I never heard that. That's crazy. I don't believe that for a second, but that's crazy.
I know, that's why, like, I mean, at the time, it wasn't huge at the time, but it got a lot of pickup. And I was like, oh, you know, aggregates.
The aggregators, they love it. Best actor. Jeff Bridges wins for Crazy Heart.
Yeah.
What a great speech.
Great speech, great moment. You know, just kind of boring because
a Lifetime Achievement Award. He wins, basically.
Yeah.
They didn't do the Lifetime Achievement Awards and all the Governor's Awards on the show this year. They relegated that to a ceremony and then talked about it on the broadcast. But they still got to do a Lifetime Achievement Award. Jeff Bridges right here.
Yeah, he got to get a competitive award, unlike Lauren Bacall.
Right, that's right. He did. George Clooney nominated for Up in the Air. Colin Firth, Morgan Freeman for Invictus, and then Jeremy Renner for The Hurt Locker.
It was like the Chalk Five.
The other people I wrote down: Michael Stuhlbarg for A Serious Man, Charlton Copley for District 9. Andy Serkis got a BAFTA nomination, I believe, for Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll. I also put down Brad Pitt for Inglourious Bastards, even though I think that's category fraud. But I think you could have run him lead.
I did Bradley for Hangover. Ben Foster for The Messenger. And I think Viggo Mortensen got a Critics' Choice nomination for The Road, right? But yeah, this was just, you know, it was Jeff's time. And Crazy Heart was also a late film. It was like a December release, but they were getting their screeners out. And then you could tell by nomination morning that they were watching it because Maggie Gyllenhaal got a surprise nomination. Right. So then I was just like, well, yeah, he's definitely winning if you didn't already know this.
And it also wins the original song.
Yes, for T-Bone Burnett. So.
And this year we had not a similar thing, but obviously Crazy Heart, not a Best Picture nominee, even with 10. Jeff still wins. This past year we had Brendan Fraser win for The Whale.
Yeah, he's
Remember
the first
that?
one since Jeff to win without a Best Picture nomination for his film.
So. Remember that? He won for The Whale?
You know, the totally same performances, same films too.
Not much to say here. I love Jeff Bridges. I thought his speech was really wonderful. He gives like a really nice tribute to his family. It's a great moment. And it's like, yeah, like good that he won. And the movie is good. I actually think I'm not a big Scott Cooper guy. I think he's like very hit and miss and tries very hard to get that like 70s Americana, you know, like maverick filmmaker stuff. But like this is really not a bad, I think it's a good movie and like he's really good.
Yeah, the only thing Jeff lost was BAFTA, because they gave it to Colin Firth for A Single Man, who will win the following year the Oscar for The King's Speech.
That's another reason why this whole category feels like no chance at any. So Clooney had won for Syriana, doing Up in the Air, which feels like a more mainstream version of Michael Clayton, at least on like face of it. Colin Firth wins next year for King's Speech. Morgan Freeman had won for $1 Million Baby a few years before, and Renner's like the new guy who will be back for The Town, which I know
he should have won for The Town.
Love freaking rules in The Town. Best Actress, Sandra Bullock. Did I win or did you wear me down? She wins for The Blind Side. Helen Mirren for Last Station. Carey Mulligan in Education. Gabourey Sidibe for Precious. And Meryl for Julie and Julia.
Yeah, I remember very like before Blind Side was released in November that, you know, people were being like, oh, is this like Meryl's third, because Julie and Julia had been out already because it came out in the summer, you know. And I saw Julie and Julia and I was like, this is not like an undeniable performance. It's like, you know, she's got to win for this. I mean, I don't think the Iron Lady is either, but she also had, you know, it's Harvey behind her. And then I remember when Sandra Bullock started getting nominations for The Blind Side, And it was just kind of like, LOL, I see what's happening here.
It
Like she started getting, like obviously first our Globes and Critics' Choice, and then at Critics' Choice, she tied with Meryl, and there's that iconic moment when there's like feedback or like there's like a noise on stage during her speech, and she's like, "What the fuck," you know? And that started her whole thing with Meryl and how they like kiss and stuff at all the events. And yeah, but like once that happened, because Critics' Choice was first, and then 2 days later were the Globes, and then she won that, and Meryl won the Comedy Globe for Julie and Julia, and then it was just like, Sandra's gonna win because she's gonna get rewarded for her big year and also her career. Like she's one of our last, to this day, our last real movie stars, like bankable movie stars, box office. Even on Netflix, she can bring the eyeballs.
Her box, even with her eyeballs covered.
And everyone loves her. Like the Oscars are they're not even that much about quality, but they're very much about they're very much a popularity contest and a personality contest.
This era we've seen a lot where it's not just like that, it's like the people they love in the crowd, the in crowd loves, they want to reward the people that they like Sean Penn winning 2 Oscars, deservedly so probably, but like the way he won and winning against ostensible outsiders or prickly personalities who are not as embraced.
Again, personality contest, popularity contest, and they didn't have that.
Sandra, again, I think like Meryl's already in, so we don't have to worry about her winning a third, like for this.
Yeah,
like
and said. Like Helen just won recently, and then Carrie and Gabourey are the newbies, like first time like Renner,
I think if you like, the other thing is I think Carrie and Gabourey could have each won, and I think that actually helps.
I would have of this, I would have given it to Carrie, this lineup. Yeah,
maybe. I think Gabourey could have won, honestly. I don't know. Like, I think that's like close enough to that, even if this wasn't just like a Sandra Bullock coronation, that if it was just all played straight, like she still might have won based on like everybody else not having enough support.
I mean, like that performance in The Blind Side is totally serviceable.
It's fine. It's just a movie star performance. I mean, like, it's not as good as Erin Brockovich and Julia Roberts.
No. And then I am glad that she eventually got her second nom for Gravity. She's way better in Gravity.
And she could have won for Gravity, frankly. Yeah. She's great in Gravity. It's a great performance. So it's like paid off this win for that.
Yeah, so I'm glad like this is not her only nomination and win, because I feel like she'd be mocked a lot more for it. So it's like, again, she's like winning for the wrong film, as a lot of people often do, but this was like just her time, and she's a veteran of the industry, like you said, like they love her and they know her, and like she's put in the years and the work.
I really loved her speech because she takes time, which she doesn't need to do. She takes time to like give a better tribute to the 4 other nominees than their ridiculous tribute from the actors that comes before the winner is announced. She does a better job like praising Gabourey and Carrie and Meryl and Helen Mirren than the whole production did. And she didn't really need to do that, right? Because it's like her moment or whatever. And I just thought like that seemed really genuine too, because a lot of times people will be like thanking their fellow nominees, and sometimes it's bullshit, but this time really felt real, I thought. Yeah,
I think you could tell throughout the whole season that she was very grateful for all of this. Like you could tell when she made this movie, she never expected. It's kind of like Tommy Lee Jones and like The Fugitive. Like certain films people make, and you could tell they never expected to get Oscar recognition for it.
Right.
And she definitely did not expect to get Oscar recognition for this. So I think she was just very grateful that all of this was happening to her. And I think she knew she was going to win, like that look she has on her face when Sean Penn reads her name. This is also, like a week after this, not a great time for her, because then she and Jesse James split because Michelle Bombshell McGee comes out and was like, I've been having an affair with him.
Yeah, not great, Bob.
No. Oscar love curse. Yeah.
Who would you have here written down for other nominees? This was tough.
I would do Meryl for It's Complicated, not Julie and Julia.
Same. I don't think first of all, I think she's supporting in Julie and Julia. You could argue that.
Yes. But it's like, it's really
complicated for sure.
I did Melanie Laurent.
Oh, sure. I put her in supporting, but that's good. Okay.
And I did Abby Cornish for Bright Star.
I wrote down Emily Blunt, like you mentioned before, for Young Victoria. There was like at least nascent idea. I put down Megan Fox for Jennifer's Body. And I put down Zooey Deschanel for 500 Days of Summer. Good performances.
Yeah, I like her. Yeah, she and JGL were good. So
supporting actor, Christoph Waltz wins for Inglourious Basterds. Matt Damon, Woody Harrelson, Christopher Plummer, and Stanley Tucci, the other nominees. This is the biggest blow. We've done this now, 20 Oscars. This is by 21, maybe. This is by far the biggest blowout I think we've ever had. Even forget that he steamrolled the season. There's not another person here I would even think of winning.
No, it's just like, we just knew this was his from Cannes.
It's just, there's not a soul here, I feel like, who would have competed with him in any real way.
It was just a done deal. And everyone else it's kind of like Heath Ledger, it's like everyone else is just happy to be nominated.
The difference is there were good nominees, there were good there were like special performances with Heath Ledger that I think in another year maybe could have competed. None of these I think would go down as like, yeah, they were great. Woody Harrelson may be the only one here that I would go to bat for.
I mean, I would have a completely different lineup here, but like, yeah, these were just, it was again it's like they didn't even bother trying to come up with.
No. What was your other lineup? I thought the same thing, and I wrote down a lot of people, but what did you come up with?
I basically have like almost everybody from In the Loop.
Okay.
I have Peter Capaldi, Tom Hollander, David Rasche, love my guy, and even like Zach Wood. Like I would do like 4 In the Loop guys. I know that's completely unrealistic, but I would take like Peter Capaldi because he got some critics notices.
Peter Capaldi, I think, could have easily gotten in.
Yeah.
Jack Galifianakis, I think, should have gotten in.
I know. I did Alfred Molina for An Education. He got BAFTA nomination. I would have done, like I said before, if you had to do Tucci, you do Julie and Julia, not Lovely Bones. Even though his real first nomination should have been for Devil Wears Prada.
Obviously.
And then I did Alec Baldwin for It's Complicated.
Same. I thought Anthony Mackie for Hurt Locker.
Yes.
Would have been good. Matthew Good for A Single Man. I ride or die for Matthew Good. And Fassbender for Inglourious Basterds. I mean, he like is amazing in his scene. It's like an incredible sequence.
Yeah, and then I like BAFTA did Christian McKay for Me and Orson Welles. So, but that always just felt like a BAFTA thing.
Totally.
But there were a lot of other options here, and they were just like, we're not interested.
Felt very lazy. They were just like Christoph Waltz, and then we'll fill in the rest.
Yeah, and then like obviously this was Christopher Plummer's first nomination after decades, and then he'll win for Beginners. Yeah, so
and great movie,
starter nomination.
Yeah, and Beginners is a great movie, and he's great in it.
And then like Woody, like we said, like he had a good year. That's a good performance. Matt and Invictus, like fine, whatever.
It's funny seeing Matt get the Meryl filler nomination, basically. Right? Like it's just like you didn't like he's not. This is a nomination you usually give to somebody who's had like multiple acting nominations, I feel like.
I just feel like they just kind of went down the ballot with like the usual suspects that they were used to seeing. Maybe maybe they were so stressed out having to come up with 10 Best Picture nominees. Then they're just like, oh well, he was nominated here. Like, sure, Matt is like he should have more acting nominations than he does.
He should, but not for Invictus.
No, like he should have been nominated for The Departed. So,
an inspired one would have been Bill Murray for Zombieland.
Yeah, but this is like Christoph even won Best Actor at Cannes, so it was just like locked and loaded.
It's an incredible role, like in the script. Like that was one where I read the script because like it was always around. Like I said, like Tarantino working on it for a long time. And so like I think that was online. I remember reading it. And it's great. It's a great role. He's so good in it. He's also good in Django. He probably shouldn't have won for Django, but I just love him in Django as well. He's better in Inglourious Basterds, obviously. Django he plays like a kinder version of this character. He's more of a good guy.
Yeah, like I felt like the Django win, I understand why he won. It's also fraud, but whatever. But like he already won for the right role, you know?
Yes. Django win feels like he didn't win for this, and then we're gonna let him win for Django.
Yeah, but he already won for the role he should have won for, which very few people do, you know?
Yes.
And then like that year was also the first time we had all previous winners in that category.
So that we're not gonna
Alan
do
Arkin, De Niro, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and Tommy Lee Jones.
So you're doing it now. We're not doing this one, but to do that one, it's a tough category. I think Philip Seymour Hoffman would have been the people's choice, probably.
It would have been Film Twitter's choice, not people's choice.
You could make a case for Tommy Lee, De Niro, and Arkin, but I understand why Christoph Waltz won.
Yeah, like Tommy Lee Jones won SAG because they were late with Django screeners, so it got snubbed there. So yeah, and I mean that was also when people were like, oh, like De Niro is finally done with his like shitty movies.
That was like a comeback nomination for De Niro, right? He's good in Silver Linings. I really like Silver Linings. He's good in it, but not deserving to win over for Waltz. Anyway,
so Waltz, it's like you know, Christoph Waltz, 2 for 2.
He's like a Mahershala.
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, great win, great movie, great performance. No notes. Supporting actress Monique wins for Precious and gives an iconic
legendary speech
where she says, I wrote it down, I'd like to thank the Academy for showing that it can be about the performance and not the politics.
Did you read her profile in THR earlier this year when she went into detail about this and her 13-year estrangement from Lee Daniels, and then also her beef with Oprah?
Did you pull this up, or should I?
I did pull this up.
Please read some.
So, you know, Monique famously did not want to campaign, hence that comment, because she's like, I'm just letting the work speak for itself. And obviously that irked like Oprah, Tyler Perry, and Lee Daniels, and they you know wanted her to campaign, and so she didn't even want to go to Cannes. And she said, so in this THR story from March, it says, calling from Cannes, she recalls Daniels told his star, Mama, I agree with what you're saying. I just don't think it's going to play out good for you. Monique refused to budge. And that was the problem, she recalls. The problem of how could this fat Black woman say no to the powers that be in Hollywood? And then, so then she says, so the reporter says, why wouldn't you want to like go to France to promote your movie? That sounds like fun. So it says, Monique emits a belly laugh. Quote, as I explained to Oprah Winfrey, I said, Oprah, I'm doing a talk show. I'm doing a comedy tour. I have a husband and I have babies. I have a little bit of downtime and I'm going to take advantage of it. So I'm not going anywhere because I'm not obligated to go anywhere. I've done my part, she says. So we mutually agreed to disagree. That was it. Next thing I know, I am considered difficult and hard to work with. So she for years has claimed that she got like blacklisted from Hollywood by Lee Daniels and Oprah because of her refusal to campaign. And then so there's this whole other so in her speech she mentions Oprah and Tyler Perry, but she did not mention Lee Daniels, and it incensed him. So and then the other part of this was that Oprah wanted Monique to go on her show to talk about something she had previously talked about when she was molested by one of her brothers when she was a kid. And Monique said, I'm not doing that, but she gave Oprah her blessing to talk to her brother. And instead, Oprah had her entire family on this whole episode. And then so then in 2014, there was like a party for Lupita Nyong'o. It says, in 2014, Monique was invited to the Santa Monica home of actress Alfre Woodard for a party in honor of Lupita Nyong'o, who had just been nominated for Best Supporting Actress for 12 Years a Slave. They invited you if you were, quote, they invited you if you were a Black woman who had won or been nominated for an Oscar, Monique explains. We had to tell Lupita what our experience was and share in an upliftment get-together. So this was like the first time that she and Oprah had come face to face since that her show with her family. And so she says, oh my God, this is so long. That is until the party in Monique's or in Nyong'o's honor. Spotting Winfrey on a sofa on the second floor, Monique took a seat next to her. Quote, I said, you know, we're gonna have to talk, right? She said, mm-hmm. And I just patted her on the knee and got up. And then later they had to give a speech to, all of them had to give a speech to Lupita. So Monique gives her speech, and then she says, she continues, quote, Oprah was sitting on my right. And then I turned to her and I said, now I need to talk to you. There was some phenomenal Black woman there. You could have heard a pin drop. I said, since you didn't want to return my calls for whatever reason, I'm going to say this right here. So then they talk about the show, and then like Oprah basically claims like, you know, ignorance, like she had no idea, like all that stuff. But that's the drama of Monique's refusal to campaign and the repercussions of that.
Incredible.
But she still won because it's about the performance, not the politics.
Still won. Great win. And another category where not a single one of these other nominees had any shot to me.
No, like it was always hers since basically like she had the buzz from Sundance when the film premiered there in January.
That was it. Good night, the lights.
Yeah. And then there was like no one really came through as a competitive alternate.
No. Penelope Cruz for 9, a calamity movie, Afterglow nomination.
That was her Afterglow nomination. So
Maggie Gyllenhaal for Crazy Heart, just happy to be there.
The surprise nominee. And
then Anna Kendrick and Vera Farmiga for From Up in the Air. No chance either one of them would separate from the other one.
No, it was just like, this is a movie we liked, and like congratulations on your good performances in the film, but you're not gonna win.
Other people I wrote down Melanie Laurent here for Inglourious Basterds, and Diane Kruger.
Diane got the SAG nomination here.
I thought Anne-Marie Duff for Nowhere Boy was a BAFTA nominee, I believe.
Yeah, they went like really big.
They love Nowhere Boy.
Nowhere Boy, because they also did Kristen Scott Thomas.
And
I would have done Emily Blunt for Sunshine Cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
Julianne Moore got a little bit of buzz for A Single Man, but they were like, no. Yeah. But
I put down Rachel Weisz and Rinko Kikuchi for Brothers Bloom, both of whom rule in it.
They have no idea that film exists.
No one does. Ryan Johnson doesn't. You remember? He has not thought about this in 15 years. And Monique wins. Like we said, the most chalk, obvious acting winners maybe we've done.
Yeah. Like it was so boring this year.
Very boring. Original screenplay, like we mentioned, Mark Baldwin wins for Hurt Locker, beats Quentin Tarantino for Inglourious Basterds, The Messenger, A Serious Man, and Up, the other nominees. Sure.
Yeah, like I said,
they should trade.
Quentin and Mark should trade. I do remember it kind of surprised me that some outlets were still predicting Quentin to win for this. I think even Roger Ebert did it. Let me go back to his picks, because like Hurt Locker had been winning stuff already. Like it had, so at the Globes they only have one screenplay category, and that went to Up in the Air. But like Hurt Locker had won WGA, where like Quentin obviously isn't there because he's ineligible always at WGA. And then I won BAFTA, but people were still picking it or Quentin to win. Oh my god, I can't find his original screenplay. So yeah, so Roger Ebert says Quentin Tarantino for Inglourious Basterds. Who else would have the audacity to rewrite World War II? Tarantino remains a uniquely individual filmmaker, admired as a craftsman and visionary. There's a possibility of an upset in this category if Mark Bowl benefits from an Oscar sweep for The Hurt Locker, but my money is on QT.
You lost that money, Raj.
Yeah. But I think this was also kind of the start of what we see now in the preferential era, where the screenplay win is a lot more linked to Best Picture than the directing win.
Yes. And also a note.
I mean, in this case, it won both. So.
And Cameron not nominated for Avatar obviously was a tell, perhaps, as well. Not that.
Yeah. Well, you know, Titanic
missed too, but I mean. And then adapted screenplay, Joyce. You had files on this. Precious wins. Jeffrey Fletcher, great win. District 9 and Education in the Loop and Up in the Air are the other nominees.
I mean, In the Loop, my pick. Should have won.
Good nomination. Jesse Armstrong, Oscar nominee.
Yes. But this was supposed to be. The favorite was Up in the Air. And this was like seen as like this is going to be Up in the Air's consolation prize, as we've seen time and time again, like with a Best Picture also ran has like a lot of nominations, but you know it's not competitive anywhere else. So Up in the Air had won, like we said, the Globe in the one category, Critics' Choice, WGA, and BAFTA, and like a bunch of other critics awards too. But there was infamously a screenwriting credit kerfuffle here. And this was actually exposed by, or like first covered by the LA Times on January 15th, 2010, which was also the day of the Critics' Choice Awards. So this story is about, the headline is Screenwriting Credits Floating Up in the Air. So the bulk of it is about Up in the Air, because basically Sheldon Turner first did a draft of his adaptation of the Walton Kern novel in 2003 and sold it to DreamWorks. And then years later, Jason Reitman came upon it and convinced his dad, Ivan Reitman, to get the rights. And then Ivan got Ted Griffin to do a screenplay on it. At the same time, Jason was doing his own screenplay. And so he basically wanted sole credit, and it went to arbitration in front of the WGA, and they also gave a share credit to Sheldon Turner, because there were some stuff from Sheldon's script that were still they were still in the final film. So in the story, LA Times says, so Turner's draft would be recognizable to anyone who's seen the finished film. Significant elements from its sources who read it say appear in the finished movie. The invention of George Clooney's whippersnapper partner, played by Anna Kendrick, for instance, came from Turner. Quote, parentheses, in Turner's version, it was a man. Another writer, probably Ted Griffin, who wasn't Reitman, later changed it to a woman. A key plot point about a laid-off worker committing suicide came from Turner. And while Reitman invented many memorable lines, sources noted Turner made his mark too. He was responsible for the trademark line from George Clooney's character to laid-off workers about founding an empire. And then it says Turner and Reitman declined to comment. And then, so then at the end of the story, because again, this published the same day as the Critics' Choice Awards. So it says updated 10:07 p.m., like bolded font. Reitman and Turner just won the Critics' Choice Prize for Best Adapted Screenplay. They both came to the stage, but in what could only be described as an awkward moment for Turner, who trailed Reitman by about 5 seconds in coming to the podium. Only Reitman spoke, thanking several people, but failing to acknowledge the credited writer standing next to him. Turner looked like he wanted to speak, but Reitman finished and began walking off the stage. The exit music began playing, and Turner again trailed behind Reitman, not having said anything. So that was like a repeated pattern too. Like they were just, or like Jason wasn't really acknowledging Sheldon Turner in his speeches. And then 10 days later, there had been a pre-scheduled WGA screening of the film with a Q&A after with the writers. So this is the headline of the wrap on January 25th. Up in the Air holds a damage control screening. And then, so like backstory on all the drama. And it also says in here, a vast majority of the Guild audience seemed unaware of any controversy, which just kind of shows like how much of a bubble a lot of us live in when we cover this stuff. You know, like the people who are actually in the industry, they don't follow a lot of this stuff because they have lives and jobs. And then so it says Reitman and Turner quickly and of course entirely predictably proclaimed that they were friends, even though their work could not be deemed a collaboration in any real sense of the word. Quote, "It's a unique situation," said Turner. "I met Jason for the first time after the movie was done." And then so some background on the stuff. So Jason says he still has not read Sheldon's script. Quote, "I have to apologize," said Reitman. "I still never read your script. I'm sure it's very good." And then Jason says he doesn't mind sharing credit because, quote, "I realized we were both drawn to the book for the same reasons, and we both sat down to write the same screenplay. Even though we never sat over the same keyboard, I'm really proud to sit on the same stage with him and really proud to share credit." Turner echoed the sentiment. "How can I not be proud to sit next to him and have my name next to his?" So that was
all this Michigas is why it lost.
I think that was part of it. Like we said before, it seemed like Up in the Air was on the downswing. It missed editing. It didn't get the SAG nomination. And I think I don't think this was like the only factor, but I think that's, I think the voters, the writers who are aware of it especially kind of remember it, and just like I don't know if this is like the correct stance to take. I mean, like clearly they didn't write together.
Right.
But I think like, saying like, "I've never read your script," like that's not great optics. Like you could like lie and say like your script was great. I also wonder if maybe some of like the Nepo baby stuff was part of it. It's like, oh, he's kind of like being privileged.
Do you think in 2009 you think people cared about that as much? Jeff Bridges.
No, but I think it's more kind of like seeing that like he's obviously has the connections. I mean, obviously they don't care about like familial connections and like cronyism or anything, but I think it's more about like him wanting the sole credit initially, and it's like you already have this privilege, like why don't you share credit with this guy whose inventions clearly ended up in the script,
right?
Maybe.
So I wanted to mention song, Joyce, original song, before we go. We're going to rank our best picture winners of the decade here as we wrap up another great season of Oscars Playback, perhaps our last. I don't know if we'll do this again. We'll have to think about it. The Weary Kind wins for Crazy Heart. The other nominees were Almost There from The Princess and the Frog, Down in New Orleans from The Princess and the Frog, Loin de Penang from Paris 36, and Take It All from 9. And my take was, in typical Disney animation fashion, they nominated the wrong songs from Princess and the Frog because Dig a Little Deeper, which is like the villain song, is an absolute banger and should have won. But it wasn't even nominated because they picked these other two. See, reminded me of Encanto.
I mean, like, was that even submitted? I don't know.
Probably not. It reminds me of like Encanto.
Yeah.
Like how
because it's like they usually do hero songs or the I Want song.
Right. Yes. And they didn't do the villain song, and they fucked up because it would have won. Weary Kind is fine. I liked hearing Colin Farrell sing it. Very nice. But no, that was a mistake. And then score, we said Michael Giacchino wins for Up. Good list of nominees, though.
Yeah, like
for Avatar.
I would have just done like Where the Wild Things Are.
Sure.
So, but yeah, like he again, like Michael had the opening scene of Up. So
that was it. And then the last one I wanted to shout out, documentary feature, The Cove wins, which means our pal Hugo Fisher Stevens is an Oscar winner.
Yeah, it seems to me that a lot of people, also not surprising to me either, a lot of people don't know that Fisher Stevens is an Oscar winner.
Correct. He produced The Cove.
Mm-hmm. He spoke.
He was the one who spoke.
Yeah.
And he sounded just like Hugo.
Well, he plays Hugo, so.
Scraps
And
will
then
be
the
millions.
other big speech moment, the ceremony, was during Doc Short.
Yes, that was next.
They had their own Kanye moment when Music by Prudence won.
Yes.
So there was like drama between Roger Ross Williams, who was giving the speech, and then Eleanor Burkett, who crashed, who pulled the Kanye.
Yes.
And then interrupted his speech. So they basically disagreed during the production of the film, and she was like taken off because she wanted it to be focused on like the entire band and not just one person. So they like settled like out of court or whatever. But then the best part is I found this interview between. So Salon talked to each of them afterwards.
Excellent.
Not together. And then so
this is like Sheldon Turner, Jason Reitman, part 2.
Yeah, but they actually, like, these people actually spoke about it. There was no party line here. So it says like blah blah blah. So can you explain the reason behind the riff? So there's Eleanor Burkett. The movie is supposed to be about the entire band. Liana and the band members very clear they did not want to participate if it ended up just being about one person. The director and HBO decided to focus solely on Prudence. And then Salon says, and that led to the riff. But didn't you see him at other events to discuss what would happen if you won? He won't talk to me. The whole week, there have been events thrown by the International Documentary Association, and he hasn't passed any of the invitations on to me. The movie was my idea. I live in Zimbabwe. Roger had never even heard of Zimbabwe before I told him about this. And, I felt in my role in this has been denigrated again and again and wasn't going to happen this time. How did you feel about the final product? The final product, it's not that it's bad. It's not what I envisioned when I came up with this project, and it's not what we promised the boys in the band. It's just not what we want it to be. So Salon, 15 minutes later, rings up Roger Ross Williams. So then they ask, how did that happen? And he says, only one person is allowed to accept the award. I was the director, and she was removed from the project nearly a year ago, but she was able to qualify as a producer on the project and be an official nominee. But she was very angry. She actually removed herself from the project because she wanted more creative control. But you couldn't decide ahead of time who would speak. That was handled by the publicist for the Academy. I don't know what they told her. The Academy is very clear that only one person can speak. I own the film. She has no claim whatsoever. She has nothing to do with the movie. She just ambushed me. I was sort of in shock. And then she claims she found the movie story, that she brought it to you. No, not at all. The truth is she saw the band perform in Zimbabwe and told me about it. And then I opened up a dialogue, blah, blah, blah. And then he says it does not diminish the Oscar at all. So Eleanor had earlier claimed that his mom tried to stop her from bum rushing the stage with her cane. So they asked him about that. And he says, my mother got up to hug me, and my mother is 87 years old. She was excited. What are people saying about it? They're saying it like she pulled a Kanye. She did. She pulled a Kanye, and it's a shame because this is such a positive and happy film.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's all I got, Joyce. So now we're going to do our best picture ranks for the decade. The time has come. Part 2.
This wasn't very hard to do.
I wonder if we have the same top 4, but I'll go first. I'm going to go 10 to 1. Crash is 10, Joyce. I'm going to guess Crash is 10 for you. Crash.
I think Crash is 10 for most people.
Is Crash the worst movie to ever win Best Picture?
Yes, you can make a very, very strong argument.
I think you could too. 9, I have A Beautiful Mind. Pretty mid. 8, I have Slumdog Millionaire. Solid movie, just not my fave. 7, Hurt Locker. 6, $1 Million Baby. 5, Chicago. Love that razzle dazzle. 4, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. 3, Gladiator. 2, No Country for Old Men. And number 1, with a bullet, The Departed.
So my 10 is obviously Crash.
Yeah.
And then, like the next 4, they could really, or I guess no, 9 is A Beautiful Mind. The next 3 could really be in any order. So 8, I have $1 Million Baby. 7, Slumdog. 6, Hurt Locker. 5, Chicago. 4, Gladiator. 3 Lord of the Rings, 2 No Country, and 1 Departed.
So we're pretty lockstep there.
That's why I said it's pretty easy.
The Departed we didn't even do this season. We did it last season as a bonus.
We did it last season.
It's just one of the great movies of all time, I think. It's the most rewatchable Best Picture winner possibly ever. I'd put it even more rewatchable than like Godfather.
It's so great. And I'm glad that like this is the source of Marty's win. I know a lot of people are not happy that this is what got him the Oscar instead of like Raging Bull or Goodfellas. And I'm like, no, Departed is great.
So we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about Departed because we have a whole episode that you can watch where we talked about it. The thing that I love about it being his Oscar movie, especially in this era of movies when he was like coming close, is that the thing about I think most people, or at least I love about Martin Scorsese, is that his movies are very funny. And like Goodfellas is a great example of this, where it's like horrible people doing bad things, but it's very funny. And The Aviator, Gangs of New York, even The Irishman, there's funny parts in The Irishman, not a barrel of laughs. Departed is almost a full-on comedy, and it's incredible. It's just so funny and just so entertaining. And I think that's why it deserved to be his big Oscar win. It just is like, if you weren't going to do Goodfellas, you missed the boat on that, then this is the next best thing. So I'm really glad he won for Departed.
And then he finally won, like we talked about, when he just didn't care about winning anymore.
It's great.
Like he didn't campaign at all. You know, there was no Harvey around,
Nothing.
You know, forcing him to do anything, writing fake ads.
Robert Wise.
I feel like most people would have No Country in first.
I think No Country and Return of the King would probably be the top 2 for a lot of people. Email us we're never going to read these on the air. Maybe we'll do them on like a regular episode. Email me your picks here, slugfest@goldderby.com. I'd be curious to see what some people decide. But I do think like No Country would be the lock number 1. I think Hurt Locker would be pretty high. I do think people really like that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I like it.
I think Gladiator would be lower than we have it. I'm not sure people really like Gladiator, but they're wrong because it's
no.
great.
I like the win because it is not your usual win, especially in this era that we're in. Or right. Like Sigourney Weaver allegedly said, you know, they used to give it to blockbusters, and not these tiny films. So, but like we talked about, like Traffic was definitely runner-up then, and that film is definitely in line with, you know, more recent winners.
Yeah. And I gotta say, if Traffic had won instead of Gladiator, I'd probably still have it in the top 4. I'd probably put Lord of the
Rings. I would have Traffic in like 3 or 2. I love Traffic.
Good movie. I mean, I have Gladiator 3. Maybe I have Traffic in 3 too.
Yeah.
So that's
and then $1 Million Baby, I don't really like. It's fine.
Like we said on that episode, never really watched it again, but people really loved it
at the time, and because it was a surprise, because no one was expecting it that year. It's still like I could do without the narration.
Not great.
Yeah, and then Slumdog is sure.
Just not a lot of like. It's tough when you're ranking them because it's like I basically ranked them in the order of rewatchability too, and I don't know if that was intentional or not, but like not really watching Slumdog and Beautiful Mind anymore.
No, I mean, like I keep that in mind when I rank. Like, do I rewatch this film? Have I rewatched it? Do I want to rewatch it? Which, like, and you can have different answers for all of them. And then also I think about how the film was made, and you know, if it was actually good or not, and like my issues with it or what I liked about it.
Yeah.
So like I've never seen Crash again.
Haven't seen it in years. I have no interest in watching it anytime soon.
I mean, I've definitely of these, I've seen The Departed the most again.
Great movie. So, Joyce, if we did a 3rd season, I'm not going to lock us into anything because who knows what the world will hold. But I guess we would go back to the 80s because I don't want to go further forward.
No, we can't do the 2010s. We've talked about this before.
So we got to go back to the 80s.
We already did 180 ceremony because it was late.
The difference is the only difference would be when we do the 80s would be that we haven't lived enough to see those movies in the theater.
I mean, I wasn't alive for half of it.
I was alive for most of the whole decade, but I only saw I saw some things in the theater, so that'll be fun. I could talk about Muppets Take Manhattan, Return of the Jedi, Transformers animated movie.
I mean, like the 80s, you know, we had some epics there. No, we have another sleeper there with The Last Emperor.
I think
Out
the
of
80s
Africa.
are really
You have Terms
rough.
of Endearment.
The winners of the 80s are bad, mostly. That's my take. So that might be fun. So maybe we'll do the 80s next summer, Joyce. But this has been so much fun. Who could have more fun than us? Not gonna do any bonus episodes this year.
We already did the bonus episodes.
The
last
bonus
year.
episodes exist.
That's why we only
That's why we only did 8 of
didn't do Departed this year.
We didn't do Departed. We didn't do I guess that was it, just Departed. All right. Well, this was fun. So see you next time. And I guess that's it. All right. Bye.